another school shooting at Annunciation Church in Minnesota. And right on cue, out comes the left's favorite beta mascot, David Hogue. So after the latest tragedy, here's David Hogue, his big brave message to President Trump. Roll it.
Trump has the power to do something about this. After Parkland, he repeatedly said, you guys are cowards. You're not going to do anything because you're afraid of the NRA.
There are around 500 million firearms in this country. That's not a typo. That's not a rounding up error. That's more guns than people. That's nearly 2 guns for every adult in America. Welcome to Stay in the Fray podcast. I'm your host, Ryan. This is where headlines get hit hard, hypocrisy gets shredded, and the absurd are laughed at. If you want comfort, this isn't your place. If you want blunt and unfiltered, I'm your guy. Join me in the fray.
All you gotta do is just listen up.
Hey everyone, good to be back. Let me set the stage for you real quick. Another school shooting at Annunciation Church in Minnesota. I talked about it on the last show a little bit. Tragedy, lives lost, families wrecked. And right on cue, out comes the left's favorite beta mascot, David Hogue. You remember this kid, right? He wasn't even in the classroom, but somehow turned into the Democrats' poster boy for gun bans. CNN hands him a mic like he's the Pope of Parkland, and every time there's a headline, he reappears to scold America. Now here's what pisses me off about this guy the most. Hogue only shows up when there's a shooting in the suburbs or one that's glamorized on television. Meanwhile, kids are getting shot every night in Chicago, Baltimore, DC, and so on. All cities with the strictest gun laws in the nation, by the way. So where the hell are you then, David? Where's the press tour for those kids? So after the latest tragedy, here's David Hogue, his big brave message to President Trump. Roll it.
Trump has the power to do something about this. After Parkland, he repeatedly said, you guys are cowards. You're not going to do anything because you're afraid of the NRA. We need to do something about guns. That is what he said. And then he met with the NRA and did nothing. Why? Because he is a coward. And my message to Donald Trump is that you are a coward, sir. You are not going to do anything about this issue because you are terrified of the NRA, even though you have the power to save tens of thousands of lives. You were the strongest president in modern American history with a chokehold over your party and both chambers of Congress. You have the power to end this, but you are not going to because you're a damn coward.
A coward, huh? That's adorable. David thinks he's being tough, telling off the president. Newsflash, champ. It's not even the president's job. That responsibility sits with local leaders. Trump, like a lot of us, understands one basic fact of reality. You cannot simply round up the guns. Period. End of story. So why is he a coward exactly? On top of that, there's this little thing called, I don't know, the Second Amendment. Maybe you've heard of it. You are a misinformed pundit, Hogue. So no, Trump isn't a coward. The real cowards are the politicians in the blue cities who hide behind empty press conferences instead of protecting the people bleeding out on their streets every weekend that Hogue and his cheerleaders don't want to admit. There are around 500 million firearms in this country. That's not a typo. That's not a rounding up error. That's more guns than people. That's nearly 2 guns for every adult in America. And you're sure as hell not going to pry them out of 100 million homes without setting off. But instead of acknowledging that reality, the reform screamers pretend if we just sign one more bill, evil will vanish. Meanwhile, the real people live with gunfire every single weekend. Let's talk about Chicago. Labor Day weekend this year, I think I mentioned that as well last show, 8 were killed, 50 wounded. That's not some rare freak event, by the way. This last weekend, 7 were killed and 19 shot. It's just a normal weekend in the Windy City. Keep in mind, Illinois has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. You got permits, waiting periods, background checks, registries, layer upon layer of reform. And yet, the criminals in Chicago treat the place like it's a live fire training range. So enter Trump. He looks at the chaos and he says, hey, maybe we need to send in some federal help. Maybe we need to try something new since clearly nothing else is working. And the reaction from the blue city mayors, they don't say thank you. They don't say, finally, let's do this. Someone's trying to help us stop the bloodshed of our own city's civilians. No, they clutch their pearls and cry about Trump being a dictator, an authoritarian. You've got kids bleeding out on the sidewalk, but the priority is making sure that the president doesn't look like he did something right. That is the cowardice, Hogue. Local accountability gets skipped because admitting failure is too humiliating for these so-called leaders. Instead, they redirect the anger. They put David Hogg on TV to lecture the president, who doesn't even control city policing, as if Trump can just snap his fingers and erase crime. The media plays along, of course, selling this fantasy that a president who respects the Constitution is somehow afraid of the NRA. No, David, Trump isn't scared of the NRA. He's just aware of the Second Amendment. That's a big difference. All right, let's dig into the numbers that no one at CNN wants to talk about. In 2023, nearly 47,000 people died from gun-related injuries. That's a huge number, right? That's the one that they splash across every chyron, the one they scream into the cameras with, 47,000 dead, America's a war zone now. But peel back the headline, dig a little deeper, and you'll realize something that's inconvenient for you. 58% of those deaths were suicides. That's more than half. I'm not great at math, but I know that much. Most gun deaths aren't mass shootings. They're not even homicides. They're people turning the gun on themselves. Mental health crisis, despair, addiction, depression, the very stuff politicians pretend doesn't exist because it doesn't make for fiery press conferences. You see, blaming the guns is easy. It's lazy. It's profitable. You just point at an object and scream about banning it. But actually dealing with why so many Americans want to pull the trigger on themselves, on others, that requires funding mental health, rebuilding families, tackling culture, stuff that takes work. And it's not comfortable. Let's be honest. These politicians don't want to do hard work when they can just grab a soundbite. So when David Hogue lectures the country about the NRA being the problem, I can't help but laugh. Sorry, kid. The NRA didn't cause 27,000 suicides last year. They didn't create broken homes, fatherless kids, opioid addiction, or a culture that glorifies violence. That's deeper than a simple gun lobby. And here is the ugly truth. You can confiscate every firearm in America tomorrow, and you'll still have despair. You'll still have people ready to hurt themselves or others. They'll just do it with pills or knives or bombs or whatever else they can find. Guns amplifies it, sure, but the root is human brokenness. The thing no one wants to admit because solving it isn't as easy as a ban or a tweet. So let's try to have an adult conversation about it for once. All right, let's be clear. This show now is called Stay in the Fray. If you've been with me a while, you know it used to be called Stay in the Gray podcast. Now we're fighting through the lies and we rip apart all the bullshit. But I'll admit, when it comes to guns, there is one spot that I can dip back into the gray area. Because here's the deal. The far left and the far right on this issue are both embarrassing. On one side, you've got the pearl-clutching progressives who think if we just ban the AR-15s, crime will magically disappear. It's a cute fairy tale. But on the other hand, you've got the internet commandos saying, arm every secretary, arm the lunch lady, arm grandma, like we're turning the PTA into a Navy SEAL team. Calm down. I am all for armed security in schools. I've said that on the last show, and that is one of my solutions. But real trained professionals, whose job it is to protect the kids, handing holsters to every adult with a school ID, that's fantasy camp, not policy. So what's the gray? What actually works? Well, first, schools. We don't need Miss Henderson, the algebra teacher, whipping a pistol out of her chalk drawer. We need trained officers, like I just said, security on campus who actually know how to handle a weapon under pressure. Second, background checks. Close the loopholes. private sales, the so-called Charleston loophole that lets a gun sale go through if the check isn't done in 3 days, fix it. You can't scream about safety while leaving the back doors wide open. Honestly, we don't need to sell 4 types of automatic weapons to the disgruntled-looking 18-year-old at the counter who's one bad day away from a headline. Third, mandatory training. People need to take a test and prove they can shoot a gun. I mean, we have to take a test that proves you can parallel park before you can drive your Honda Civic. Somehow, carrying a deadly weapon is treated like a right without responsibility card. No, gun ownership comes with weight. Learn the basics, get certified, handle it the right way. And fourth, penalties. If you're carrying an unlicensed firearm in public, hammer them, throw the book. If you're on your own property, locked and loaded, that's your business. That is your right. This is what the cowards in government refuse to admit. There is a balance. Rights matter, responsibility matters. You can protect the Second Amendment without handing an AR-15 to a school janitor. And you can demand smarter rules without confiscating grandpa's hunting rifle. So that's the gray. That's the adult conversation. It's not the screaming match where one side pretends banning plastic and metal fixes culture, and the other side pretends that every Little League coach needs a Glock to feel safe. Grow up, both of you. Let's go back to Chicago for a second. This city is the Super Bowl of political hypocrisy. Every weekend, body counts look like a war zone. The mayor, Brandon Johnson, somehow thinks the problem is what exactly? Too many people going to jail. Here's the man himself. Listen to this.
The mayor of this city, I can tell you that Chicagoans are not calling for a military occupation. They are calling for the same thing that we've been calling for some time, and that's investment. What safe cities across America all have in common, they invest in people, and that's what we're doing in Chicago. We need the federal resources to make sure that we're building more affordable housing, expanding mental and behavioral health care, education, all of these things that could reduce crime and provide real community safety. Instead of spending hundreds of millions of dollars for a publicity stunt to invoke chaos and terror, the federal government should spend that money on proven solutions to crime and violence reduction. We cannot incarcerate our way out of violence. We've already tried that, and we've ended up with the largest prison population in the world without solving the problems of crime and violence. The addiction on jails and incarceration in this country, we have moved past that. It is racist, it is immoral, it is unholy, and it is not the way to drive violence down.
Oh goodness, look at Governor Cheeseburger behind him. I don't even know where to start. That's just genius stuff right there, Brendan. Jailing criminals isn't the answer. Really. What the hell is the point of having laws? Do you hear yourself when you speak, Mayor Johnson? Instead, you go on about investing in education, after-school programs, community gardens, whatever the buzzword of the week is. Chicago has had decades of investment. Billions shoveled into programs, consultants, nonprofits, commissions. And what has the result been? The city is still bleeding. Where did all the money go? Spoiler alert, not into safety apparently. Or it's just not working. And of course, then he actually called it racist and immoral to lock criminals up. Brandon, let me ask you something. Who's the racist here if you think about it? Because if you're saying that locking up criminals is racist, you're basically admitting that you already know which demographic is committing most of the crime. You said it, not me. Seriously, people, there is nothing racist about locking up a murderer. There's nothing immoral about taking a rapist off the street. Do you know what's immoral? Letting killers roam free so that innocent families have to bury their kids. That is immoral. And just so you don't think I'm exaggerating, here's a quick receipt. This one got to me more than most. This is from a Little League football game in Chicago. You heard me, Little League kids. The kids are just out there trying to play football. And listen to what happens.
In Chicago, everybody got to get down. Everybody got to get down because they shoot. Everybody down. Look, these kids are running. They shooting. We can't have no fun in Chicago, man. No fun, man. This is terrible. I ought to throw a goddamn flag. Because this y'all neighborhood.
You can hear the sorrow and the truth in his voice. That's not a statistic. That's not a soundbite. That's just a normal afternoon in Chicago. They live this every damn day. Kids can't even play football. Let's head over to DC, because this is what became the test case city. Trump decided, you know what? If these local leaders won't protect their own citizens, I'll bring in federal help. Boots on the ground. A reset, if you will. In DC, he had that authority. Of course, the media instantly branded it as militarization. Cue the scary graphics, dramatic music, headlines about Trump sending stormtroopers into the Capitol. Everyone panics. Oh no, Orange Hitler is invading DC. But here's the thing, militarization or not, it worked. Crime dropped, and fast. But don't take my word for it. Let's hear from the DC Mayor Muriel Bowser herself before any of the federal takeover happened in DC. Go ahead and roll it, boys.
We are American citizens. Our families go to war. We pay taxes and we uphold the responsibilities of citizenship. And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised. I can say to DC residents that we will continue to operate our government in a way that makes you proud.
Basically, to her credit, it was a nice way of saying we're not surprised, and they weren't happy about it. But classic pearl clutching, she was upset that Trump would dare bring in federal resources because technically crime was already down a teeny bit, she went on to say. Not fixed, not safe, just down a hair. And she acted like she didn't need any help. Well, she absolutely did. Once reality walked in, the feds were deployed, they cracked down. And within 20 days, the numbers were undeniable. Violent crime nosedived, carjackings fell off a cliff, and DC residents could finally breathe for a second. And Mayor Bowser's response?
For carjackings, the difference between this period, this 20-day period of this federal surge and last year represents a 87% reduction in carjackings in Washington, D.C. We know that when carjackings go down, when the use of gun goes down, when homicide or robbery go down, neighborhoods feel safer and are safer. So this surge has been important to us for that reason.
She went on to thank the federal government. Did you catch it? That's the same mayor now thanking the federal government for after carjackings dropped 87%. She didn't thank Trump by name, of course. God forbid a lefty show personal gratitude to the man. But she admitted the results. And honestly, good for her. That is maturity. That is honesty. And that is leadership. She swallowed her pride and she said, yeah, you know what? This worked. And that right there is what every other mayor in America should be doing. You don't have to like this guy. You don't have to vote for him. But when something makes your city safer, clearly, grow up and admit it. Bowser did. Why can't Brandon Johnson? Why can't Governor, whatever his name, Pritzker, do the same? Why can't the protesters who are out there see this? New York. Trump's so-called militarization, it worked. Full stop. And the only reason it's controversial is because the wrong guy made it happen. I'm going to wrap it up, but before I do, just when you thought the clown car couldn't get any fuller, along comes the internet. Twitter and TikTok and whatever platform you prefer. The land of the brain-dead hot takes. Excluding mine, of course. I saw a post from someone calling themselves the Nihilist Abyss. Yes, that's the actual name they use, because nothing screams credibility like sounding like a Hot Topic clearance rack. And here's what she said. Chicago in here. This isn't fucking funny. Our president openly is sharing memes of my city in flames with military helicopters overhead. And I'm just supposed to go to work hoping that our own president doesn't drop a bomb on me in an American city. What the fuck timeline is this I want out of it? I will never forgive anyone voting for this. Oh my God. Lady, this is not Call of Duty. It's not Fallout 5. And Trump doesn't have a nuclear button labeled Chicago under his desk. What kind of indoctrination does it take to really believe this bullshit? These people are so marinated in their woke echo chambers that they've convinced themselves that the president is about to send an F-16 in to rain fire on Wrigley Field. But this is why it's impossible to take the left and the opposition seriously. Instead of debating real policy, they're role-playing apocalypse scenarios for social media likes. What's sad is that people believe it. They believe Trump is literally this comic book villain waiting to vaporize their Starbucks. It's delusional, it's embarrassing, and it's exactly why nothing ever changes. So I'll leave you with this. People are screaming and crying for the wrong reasons. Somebody told you to hate the big bad orange man, and you just did. No questions asked. Open your eyes. Look at the actual results. His so-called militarization in DC dropped carjackings by 87%, like I mentioned, along with all the other crime statistics. That is lives saved. That is kids safer on their way to school. Those are facts. And you wonder why the opposition is terrified of Trump. Because every time he actually fixes something like this, it exposes how useless the Democrats have been. It's why they invent scandals and why they smear and why they lie. Because winning, actual provable success, like I gave you in this episode, it scares the hell out of them. And maybe it should. But me, I want crime stopped. I want the criminals to be the ones who are scared. I'm tired of walking around every day sizing up the threats, wondering when I'll have to defend my wife and kids. Some random psycho just happens to be over there. I gotta be ready. It's not freedom. That's survival. And we don't have to live that way. This is Stay in the Fray podcast. If you want safe streets, if you want actual results, then stop listening to hysterical paid pundits on the internet and the cowardly mayors and start demanding real solutions. Because the criminals are not scared yet, but they damn well should be. Like and subscribe, you know what to do, all the stuff. Join me here in reality. Let's push forward together. So stay strong, stay determined, stay grounded, stay in the fray. Love you guys.
All you gotta do is just listen up.